Before I moved into my current studio space, I started filming an art then versus now video, and I'm gonna show you that video today. This is a longer video. It's gonna be about 30 minutes, give or take, and it's designed to kind of be like me sitting down telling you what it really was like growing as an artist. You've ever kind of seen these videos and been like, okay, you were amazing the whole time, like, can you just show us stuff that sucks to make us feel better? Oh, I got some art for you that you're gonna enjoy. I'm gonna be really honest with you guys. Art was not something that always came natural to me, even though I really loved it. So you're going to see in the footage I'm about to show you that progression. Let's get right into this. So what I wanted to do is create something for you guys to watch that could give you a little bit of a backstory on my own art, but also help you with your own creative practice. I don't really want to just make videos babbling about myself. I want to actually improve your creative practice whenever you watch my videos. Now, I love art with all of my heart and soul, but I kind of feel like I was tricked because my 3rd grade teacher would play the Enya discography on repeat anytime we created anything. And it is a scientific fact that whenever Enya plays, anything you're experiencing will be glorious beyond the normal scope of human emotion. Okay, I did like art before that. So my real love for art began in 1st grade. So I actually distinctly remember that it was raining one day. We could not go outside to play for recess. So instead, my teacher gave us a bunch of colored paper, some safety scissors, markers, glitter glue, anything a small child could possibly find delight in. And she just set us loose to unfurl our creativity. What I noticed is on my desk, I just had this like monstrous pile of little like creatures I'd created out of the paper cut and glued together, and all these sketches on all over everything, and I was like stapling little books together, and I just totally got into it, and I just assumed everybody else did too because it felt fantastic. How could it not feel fantastic to everybody? But it actually wasn't as interesting to some of the other kids as like I took it to that sort of extreme level. So I think that was probably the first time I really realized that creating was something that gave me a natural high. So despite that little experience of my awakening to the fact that I loved art, it really just sort of played a backseat role in my life as a child. I really didn't consider art anything that I would spend more than idle time on, or any type of serious pursuit until I was 15. I was in a really difficult place in terms of what I was going through as a teenager, and then just crazy stuff at home. So art was really my solace, and it was a place where I could go to feel a sense of self-esteem, to feel like I had an ability in something. And one thing that really stood out to me was an experience where my first project for this sophomore art class that I'd taken, we had to draw a still life, and I had never drawn still lifes before. When I drew, it was like little characters from my mind or just something I saw maybe, but I never really learned how to sit down and draw a proper still life. So with a very little bit of direction, when I sat down and was able to create this large-scale drawing of what was in front of me, and it actually looked somewhat real, that blew my mind. I like didn't even realize I had that ability. So to see that come to life was a strange moment for me. I'd never taken the time to use multiple hours on a piece. This was something that we broke up into several class sessions. So the teacher gave us some direction, gave us some tips, and by the end of it, we each had a still life. And the goal was that we would get portfolio pieces out of this. It was a little bit of a more, not advanced art class, but it was, you know, just specifically designed for kids that really liked art and wanted portfolio pieces. So when I had this experience and the teacher said, oh, what art school are you considering? It opened my mind to the fact that maybe this was something I could pursue as a career. This definitely would not have the same effect if I didn't show you the art, so I do have my art here with me, and I'm gonna go through some different pieces and talk through what they are. And it's a little embarrassing to look at these now. And what's funnier is I was so dead set on being an artist at this point in my life, and if you look at these pieces, I feel like there's not really an indication that I was a child that should take any type of pride when I was creating. But regardless, I still loved it and it was great. So here you go, let me show you. So this was the still life I drew when I was in that class. So prior to this, I had no formal art training. I would take like art classes here and there. I would draw for fun, but I never like learned to sit down and do a still life. So looking at this now, there's definitely a lot that I could critique, but at the time, for me, that this felt like a pretty big accomplishment. This is about 18 by 24. It's pencil, charcoal, and Conti. And yeah, it is a fish in front of a bicycle wheel. Okay. Do not judge me because I'm looking at some of these and kind of feel like I had no business wanting to be an artist with some of these pieces, but nevertheless, I really did love it, and this is some of what I created. So I used to like making little characters and stuff. So this was like a weird, grotesque praying mantis creature in an overcoat reading the newspaper. Not sure, but at the time I did this with markers and colored pencils, and I felt like this was really great character design, so. Then there's this piece, which was vines overtaking the school. It was like, we had to sit in a hallway and then just draw something based on perspective. I do feel that when I was younger, I was aware that my skill level was not quite where the other artistic peers of mine's skill levels were. So sometimes I would try to overcompensate by making a ton of ridiculous details and colors, which is very clearly what you see here. I think I also very cleverly disguised my issue with drawing the perspective with that giant vine and some of the others. So this was that project. And then I had this piece, which is like horrific to look at now, which you'll see when you see my newer colored pencil pieces. But at the time, this was a big deal. This was like an 18 by 24 piece. I was like, didn't use a reference, so I thought I was super cool, and I felt proud of this. So here it is. And the last one from that class and that year is this. It was supposed to be a self-portrait done in just acrylic, and we had to like sit with a partner, both look into a mirror, paint ourselves, and then critique. And it's not the worst, but my portrait skills and my realism skills were definitely not there. So I had a lot of ambition and a lot of heart, and I really genuinely loved art and sketched so frequently. But as you can kind of see, like these pieces don't necessarily give you the idea that I was any type of prodigy when it came to art. And I think this is important because as we go through this video, you're going to see that progression really can happen. It's not just for people who start off wonderful. It can happen to any skill level. So I can't even show this. I mean, look, this is what I did. These were the faces I was drawing, okay? So when you see the ones later in the video, you have to take into account that this is what I was coming from. So it's a pretty big come up if I say so myself. But at this point in the video, you have not seen the new pieces that they're all refined. So I'm sure this is quite terrifying and you are like, lady, what the heck? Why did you want to do art? These are terrible. I know. But for the sake of your inspiration and proving a point, we will continue. Now, to give you an idea of the things that I was practicing, at this point, my sophomore year of high school was my awakening, so to speak, to the fact that I loved art. I knew that I loved it. I knew there was at least some potential there, and I wanted to keep refining that. So all I really did that first year was just discover that I loved art, and I started regularly drawing. At first, I really didn't look from life a lot. I would just like think of stuff in my head and draw it and try to get better with like the shading. And the next year, my junior year, is when I really started to learn core principles to apply to my art to make it better. But just to kind of show you from that year, sophomore year, like where I kind of went in terms of skill level, I would do sketches like this where nothing that profound was happening, but you could see that there was some slight improvement and there was some potential to continue to learn. So this is like a giant sketch of an eye that I did. This is an unfinished, gigantic self-portrait of me with a ornament. I used to have such a hard time drawing eyes in a way that they both looked proportionate that I would just cover the eyes with something a lot prettier and colorful and more detailed to hide the fact that I could not draw eyes. So that's that. Okay, it took me a little bit to find this, but this was like a snake monster having a like tea party with a grandma trying to climb up a ladder to get to the tea party on this snake monster's back. If you're like not looking at this and just heard the audio of that, I feel like it'd be a very terrifying image, which I guess this kind of is. Okay, but to give you an idea, this is the stuff of, the type of stuff I was drawing. I really wanted to make beautiful, photorealistic, surrealist pieces, and I just didn't have the skill level to execute that, and I tried really hard. So I would put a lot of like little details and color into random areas, but there really wasn't any sense of light or space or perspective or shading. Like nothing was really there, but the core interest and the desire to improve was there, and I spent a lot of time drawing. Anytime I left school, I would come home and I would draw, and a lot of it was pretty bad. You just saw like all those things that I showed you. So that gives you an idea of what it looks like for someone that never formally practiced art, the age of 15, at that skill level. That's where I was. Some of the feelings I had, I would have these really intense ideas. I could see what I wanted to create so vividly and clear, but I couldn't actually articulate it onto paper. I wasn't able to use my own hands and artistic abilities to create something believable, which was frustrating. So junior year is when I really started to learn techniques and exercises that helped me. My art teacher was Mrs. Sarah, and she is the sole reason that I am able to create art to the level that I am now. Her and I also went to Repenning Fine Arts, which was this art school somewhat nearby. It was like a town or two over, and Jim Repenning was a teacher there who was really great. Like both of these teachers, I'd had good art teachers before, but these are the two teachers that really worked with me to develop better skill with drawing. And at first I actually didn't like my high school art teacher because in junior year, because she challenged me. She wouldn't just say, oh, this is great. She would be like, you know what, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, you gotta work on this, you gotta fix this. And I hated that. I just wanted someone to give me validation. But looking back, that was the reason I was able to improve so much, because the praise that she gave was genuine when she gave it, and if there wasn't anything to praise, she wasn't gonna bullshit me. She was gonna be honest and say, hey, this is what you gotta improve. So junior year starts, I'm ready to make portfolio pieces, and I'm taking art more seriously than ever. Class opens, and we have to draw a still life. I'm thinking that I'm gonna knock this out of the park, it's gonna be great. This is what I ended up creating. So it was like this mask and bottles, and I went all crazy with the fabric. There's a seashell. It's very stylized, done in a very heavy-handed manner, and the line weight and shading is not really that realistic. It all looks somewhat flat because there isn't a, there's not like a difference in line or value, the value of the shading. There's that word. So one of the things that's interesting that happened to me after this still life that you might be able to relate to if you're someone that's young and pursuing art, or even if you're older and have this memory in the past, I felt so confident when I was doing it, and I was getting lost in creating all the dynamic folds and all these little lines, and I just felt this was going to be great. And it came time for our class critique. I was so upset because there were so many people in the class that did so much better than me that it was mind-boggling to me. I distinctly remember there was a person that did this photorealistic still life that I think even now I might not be able to recreate, but it was so good, and I just had never seen art like that before, and everybody else in that class was at a high level. There were some people that just didn't care and took it because they needed an elective, I guess, or something, but for the most part, many of the people in that class really cared about art. And it's the first time I had any feeling of doubt, even though when I look now at the pieces I made my sophomore year, I don't think like, oh my god, how amazing. At the time when I was 15, I felt really confident in those pieces and really confident in my abilities, and I had no one that really challenged them, which is also why I didn't grow as much. Whereas in this new art class, my junior year, instead of just having people say, wow, that's great, you do art, I was actually getting real feedback. And as a younger person, that was hard to take and it felt personal, but now I can view it and realize, okay, that was constructive. There were things I needed to improve on. So what ended up happening is I worked a little bit with that teacher where she would give me exercises to do, and then I also found some on my own where I started drawing from life more at home. I started reading the book Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which I highly recommend. It had me think differently about my process. I also started taking figure drawing classes, and that was at University of the Arts, which was, it's in Philadelphia, and it was close to my house at the time. So I did 2 pre-college workshops at University of the Arts and 1 pre-college workshop at Tyler School of Art. Tyler was in the summer, I believe, and then the 2 UArts ones were either like at the same time or like fall and winter or something like that, but there would be some type of focus. Like the one it was painting, the other one it was like figure drawing. So this is one of the figure drawings I did in those classes. And as you can see, there's this very consistent style to my work then where it was like, there wasn't a lot of variation. So it's all kind of like one value, really hard lines, really intense like lineage and detail. So the heart was still there, but in terms of it being like a believable form, there was definitely still room for improvement. And to kind of show you more work from that year, this is so creepy, but why am I expecting anything less than from myself? This was like a still life we had to do with, we had to pick like, we did make our own still life from objects we found in our house. So I like did this terrifying still life of a doll that looks dead and doll heads floating in glass. I had a lot of pain, I think, as a teenager, a lot of angst that I took out of this chalk pastel drawing. So my fabric improved slightly in this piece. This was done for a high school art project again. So compared to what we've seen thus far, this was a step up. This is from the end of junior year. So if you can see, this piece here is when I started to actually create art that began to look refined and somewhat more realistic. I still had work to do, but if you can compare this here to this, even though this is really dynamic and there's a lot going on, in terms of value and being believable and just being easy to look at and see, like there's a lot of items here that just get lost in the folds. This is definitely a piece that shows more skill. Now, another big thing that helped me improve my still lives was instead of drawing harsh lines around everything, for example with these bottles, instead of outlining the bottles, I very lightly penciled in their outline so it was like almost not able to be seen, and then I shaded the background in darker so that when I went all around the sketch, it really popped forward. So around this time, I went to a teacher that I had previously and asked for some advice, and she very gently and politely said to me, you know, when it comes to realism and drawing faces, some people have it and some people don't. And if you're one of the people that just doesn't have it, you might just have to accept a more abstract style. And she didn't mean anything bad by that. She's a wonderful teacher. I really appreciated her. However, as a 15-year-old kid that like wanted to do art so bad, hearing that was devastating, because it, to me at the time, was this, like, it was a person that I respected and felt was great at art telling me, you're not good enough. You might need to scale back your expectations. And I didn't want to live in a reality where that was true. I didn't want to be bad at something that I loved. And at the time, I actually was pretty bad at it. I couldn't draw faces realistically. I couldn't draw like scenery or background realistically. I had all these ambitions and all this love for creating, but I just didn't have the chops to show for it. I just didn't have anything to show for it. So that event of hearing the teacher say that pushed me more than anything. Which now I've gotten better at sort of having internal motivation where I don't need someone else's lack of approval to kind of spur me into action. But at the time as a kid, I definitely was like, I thrived off of negativity. So when I heard that, I got more motivated than ever. There was a period though where I was really sad because I kind of felt like, okay, am I devoting all my time to this and trying to apply to all these art schools and just, am I just not gonna be able to do this? Like, is this stupid? So if you feel that way, I'm glad you're watching this video because you will be able to see how everything comes together. So, ba-doom. Okay, so at this point, we went through sophomore year, junior year, and now we're at senior year of high school. So here is another still life from that time. I was trying to get better at showing like reflective objects. It still wasn't totally there, but it's worlds better than the other still life I had created that we saw way back in sophomore year, and even better than that first one of junior year. And what I started doing senior year was I started to really refine my pencil technique. So this is a still life that was at the end of senior year. So like if you look at this, it's just a lot better than, I don't know how well it's reading on camera. It's kind of dirty because it's like a decade old. Basically, this is the result of not doing harsh outlines on everything, varying the pressure that I placed on the pencil, taking way more time. I like doubled the time that I would take on a piece. I would spread it out over several class sessions, and I used illustration board for this. And I also started using the eraser to take away values and kind of like draw and carve with the eraser. I do recommend, if you are still in high school, the number one thing to allow you to improve as an artist is continual practice. And I get it's like this eye-rolling concept. You're gonna make so much shit, it's gonna just suck for a long time, and you're gonna be like, what is the point of this? Why am I doing this? And at some point, if you keep going over those concepts and trying and trying and trying, you get better. How quickly you get better really depends. It depends on how much time you spend practicing, but also on what you practice. Drawing on the right side of the brain has really good exercises that you can follow to like improve the time it takes for you to get better, along with like private instruction. If somebody's teaching you the basics of like measuring out your line work, and then value, like difference in value, difference in pressure, and how you handle your pencil or whatever medium you're using. If you have online courses, online videos, books, teachers, any of these resources that you can use in order to improve, that's gonna get you a lot farther than just trying to like blindly improve. Like the reason I didn't improve that much my sophomore year was because I was just drawing stuff. I wasn't following any type of plan. Junior year, I was in a lot of pain and I felt really upset and embarrassed about my art a lot of the time, but I finally was actually learning, and being around people better than me pushed me. It also allowed me to look and see what they were doing, and I could see there were just things that were different about how someone else approached their work. For example, with the still lives, I noticed that I never measured anything out. So other kids would have their pencil, they'd put their arm completely straight, they would like use their thumb to mark how big on their pencil the pot was in the still life, and then keeping their arm straight, they'd move and see, okay, how far away is the plant from the pot? And they had this whole process they followed, whereas I was just kind of like madly drawing. I would kind of like roughly put in shapes and then like pound my pencil on the paper to like engrave the line drawing onto the paper, whereas I noticed a lighter hand and variation of pressure and variation of the thickness of lines made for better artwork. Now, hello, I'm in my new studio space for the second part of this video. We're going to take a look at the art that I make at 27 years old compared to what you saw from when I was a teenager. Don't you know, it is getting hard, 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 hard. I need secrets to be a part of me. I need hard to So as you guys can see, I really refined my use of line. I refined my ability with shading. I was able to learn how to use color properly. And again, as discussed throughout this whole video, the tips that I gave regarding private instruction, specific books that you can get, and also getting feedback from better artists, which if you don't know artists that are better than you or don't have access to that kind of peer group, you can simply sign up for a critique class. So they actually have classes online or like spaces online where you can get work critiqued. You can also just go to a painting or drawing class, because typically built into those classes at universities in the area, like their continuing education circuit, built into those classes, they'll have critiques of the projects you complete in that class. This is so valuable. It's important to get guidance from those that are better than you. It's not good to be stubborn and feel like you have to learn from nobody because you're your own unique artist. Like, I don't know where that mindset came from, but drop that if it's one that you have, because you're gonna grow much faster and be a better version of the artist you already are by learning from somebody else, okay? And another tip is, sometimes you think, oh, if I look at other work, I'm not gonna be original. I hate to break it to you, if you are a human with a brain, nothing you create is ever going to be fully original. Even if you never see something that resembles what you've created, someone out there has either thought of it or actually made it. So drop that strange mindset that sometimes happens when you do art, that, oh, I have to be totally original, I can't look at anything else. No, you have to look at a lot of art to become a better artist. You have to look at what's out there to be able to understand how to change things in your own way. How are you supposed to make something original if you've never seen what's out there and can't judge what you should alter to make it appear like something that's new? So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed seeing all of my pieces, and I hope this helped you gain some inspiration for your own artistic journey. Leave a comment below kind of explaining your journey if you would like. I would love to hear all about how you have changed as an artist, and I look so forward to seeing you in the next video. Create a life that inspires you to create. My name's Ash. You have a great day.